The alien scientist mocked the rock. The human whispered, "That's our weapon." Dr. Zexthera's crystalline fingers traced the rough surface of the specimen with obvious disdain. The Vorthan scientist's bioluminescent patches flickered in patterns that her human colleague had learned to recognize as condescension. "This is what your species brought to demonstrate your technological prowess?" She chittered, her translator rendering the alien words in perfect English. "A simple silicate formation? Commander Hayes, surely this is some form of primitive humor. I fail to comprehend." Commander Sarah Hayes stood quietly beside the examination table in the pristine laboratory aboard the Galactic Science Consortium's flagship. Around them, dozens of the galaxy's most brilliant minds from 17 different species worked on projects that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Energy weapons that could pierce neutronium, shields that bent space-time itself, and computers that processed information faster than light could travel. And here she was, presenting a rock. "Dr. Zexthera," Hayes said calmly, her weathered hands clasped behind her back, "I understand your skepticism, but I'd ask you to reserve judgment until the demonstration is complete." The Vorthan's head tilted in that peculiar way her species exhibited when puzzled. Her large, multifaceted eyes caught the laboratory's artificial lighting, creating rainbow patterns across her chitinous features. "Commander, I have analyzed this specimen thoroughly. It is composed of approximately 68% oxygen, 27% silicon, with trace amounts of aluminum, iron, and other common elements. Its crystalline structure is unremarkable. Its density, hardness, and electromagnetic properties are all within expected parameters for a standard planetary formation, all accurate observations." Hayes nodded. "Then perhaps you could explain how this rock represents any form of advancement? The Corvani have energy crystals that can power entire star systems. The Nethys have developed matter compilers that can create any element from pure energy. The Zephyrians have unlocked the secrets of dimensional folding." Zexthera's patches flared brighter. "And humanity brings us a rock that could be found on any terrestrial world." Other scientists in the lab had begun to take notice of the conversation. Hayes could see them gathering at a respectful distance. The towering tree-like Sylvanians with their bark-covered skin, the gaseous ethereals contained within their environmental suits, the mechanical construct delegates whose optical sensors whirred as they focused on the discussion. Hayes picked up the rock, feeling its familiar weight in her palm. It was roughly the size of a baseball, with a surface scarred by countless impacts. Nothing remarkable about it at all. "Tell me, Dr. Zexthera, what do you know about kinetic energy?" The Vorthan's patches dimmed slightly. "Elementary physics. Commander, energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared. Every species learns this principle shortly after discovering mathematics. And what about the concept of relative velocity in a zero-friction environment? Again, basic orbital mechanics. Objects in motion remain in motion unless acted upon by an external force." Zexthera's tone carried notes of impatience. "Commander, these are principles we mastered before we achieved faster-than-light travel. I fail to see the relevance." Hayes smiled. "Let me show you." She activated her wrist communicator. "Hayes, to Morrison. Are we in position?" "Affirmative, Commander. Target designated. All ships report ready." "Dr. Zexthera," Hayes said, gesturing toward the large viewing port that dominated one wall of the laboratory, "I'd like you to observe the asteroid field approximately 2 million kilometers off our starboard bow. Computer, magnify Sector 7 Alpha." The viewing port's display zoomed in to show a massive asteroid, easily the size of a small moon, slowly tumbling through space. Its surface was pocked with craters and composed of the same unremarkable stone that Hayes held in her hand. "Now," Hayes continued, "what would you estimate is the mass of that asteroid?" Zexthera's optical organs swiveled to take measurements. "Approximately 7.4 times 10 to the 15th kilograms, assuming standard density." "Excellent calculation. And if that asteroid were moving at, say, 15% the speed of light?" The alien scientist's patches flickered rapidly. A sign Hayes had learned indicated intense calculation. The kinetic energy would be, approximately, her patches went dim. That's impossible. No natural force could accelerate such a mass to those velocities. You're absolutely right, Hayes said quietly. No natural force could. She raised her communicator again. Morrison, execute Operation Slingshot. On the viewing screen, space itself seemed to ripple. The human fleet, invisible until now due to their advanced stealth technology, materialized around the asteroid. But these weren't the sleek warships of other species with their energy weapons and exotic matter hulls. These were massive utilitarian vessels that looked more like construction equipment than military hardware. What are they doing? Zexthera whispered. Something my species has been perfecting for over 10,000 years, Hayes replied. We're throwing rocks. The human ships deployed massive gravitational manipulators, not to create artificial gravity wells for travel, but to grab hold of the asteroid. Slowly, methodically, they began to accelerate it. Not with exotic propulsion systems or energy beams, but with the same principle that had allowed early humans to bring down mammoths: leverage, coordination, and an understanding of physics. The energy expenditure alone, Zexthera began, is considerable, yes. But we've learned to be very efficient with our power sources. Fusion reactors feeding gravitational lenses, all coordinated through quantum-entangled communication networks. Hayes turned the small rock over in her hands. You see, Doctor, while other species were developing energy weapons and exotic matter shields, humanity was solving a different problem: how to throw really big rocks really, really fast. On the screen, the asteroid's velocity began to climb. 1% light speed, 5%, 10%. But the targeting systems required for such an approach would be impossibly complex, Zexthera protested. The gravitational influences of every object in the system, the expansion of space itself, quantum uncertainty, would be impossible to calculate, Hayes agreed, if you were trying to hit a specific target. But you see, Doctor, that's the beauty of this weapon. We don't aim these things at ships or stations. She pointed to a star chart displayed on a nearby console. This system has 17 inhabited worlds, 437 space stations, and roughly 2 million vessels of various classifications. Hayes's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. And exactly one star. The implications hit Zexthera like a physical blow. Her bioluminescent patches went completely dark. You would destroy an entire system. Over what, territory, resources? Oh, we'd never actually fire this weapon, Hayes said quickly. The loss of life would be unconscionable. But the psychological impact of knowing we could, she shrugged. Let's just say it makes diplomatic negotiations much more productive. On the viewing screen, the asteroid had reached 15% light speed and was now coasting through space, its trajectory taking it harmlessly into the void between star systems where it would eventually be retrieved by automated recovery drones. The energy release upon impact would be equivalent to several solar flares, Hayes continued conversationally, enough to destabilize stellar fusion for several hours, trigger massive coronal mass ejections, and generally make life very uncomfortable for anyone in the system. And that's just one rock. We've prepared similar surprises for every major population center in this sector of the galaxy. The gathered alien scientists stared at the human commander in a mixture of horror and fascination. The tree-like Sylvanian's leaves rustled with agitation. The ethereal's containment suits flickered with what might have been nervous energy. But why? Zexthera finally managed. Why develop such a weapon when you could have created energy shields, faster ships, more efficient computers? Hayes held up the simple rock again, studying its unremarkable surface. Because, Doctor, while you were all reaching for the stars, we never forgot that sometimes the most effective solution is also the simplest one. We didn't need to reinvent physics. We just needed to understand it well enough to throw rocks at 90 million miles per hour. She placed the specimen gently back on the examination table. That's what my species brings to the Galactic Consortium. Not the most advanced technology, not the most elegant solutions, just the willingness to look at any problem and ask ourselves, how can we solve this by throwing something really hard at it? Dr. Zexathera's patches began to flicker again, this time in patterns Hayes didn't recognize, but she thought she detected something that might have been respect. I believe I need to revise my initial assessment, the alien scientist said slowly. This is not a primitive demonstration of technology. No, Hayes smiled, pocketing the rock. It's a demonstration of human ingenuity. And, Doctor, that's our most dangerous weapon of all.